Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about a handheld history, a celebration of portable gaming by Lost in Cold Ltd. The book is about the history of handheld gaming as the title said, and it's more of a work of groups rather than an author. I cannot show many of the book since there's a section that says not to on the book and I want to respect that. So I'll try my best to describe what the book offers without having to rely too much on the book. But it is a great read filled with fun facts about handheld gaming history for those that want to just nerd out about those. And it have a lot of beautiful portrait of the console and a ton of other original artworks including this cover of the book. The book starts in 1981 talking about the first ever handheld gaming device, which is not Game Boy as many people might know including me, but it's actually Game & Watch. It's still by Nintendo and unlike console as we know it, this handheld device only contained one game per console, which is crazy to think about now. But back then in elementary school, you can see people renting this to school kids by putting the console on a string and making the children pay to use the console for each hour or so. I used to play this a lot when I was a kid. It was invented by the late Gunpei Yoko in 1966, along with the D-pad that is now in almost every console. The most notable games on this early console is maybe only Donkey Kong, Mario, and Zelda. In 2020, the Game & Watch was re-released as collectibles for its anniversary, but back in 1989, the Nintendo and Gunpei go on to create the Game Boy. The Game Boy is one of the earliest handheld consoles that people have, including me. I still remember at the back of the car hoping that there will still be enough life to see what is happening on the screen so I could continue with my Pokemon Yellow journey. Yes, I only ever played the yellow since I never got the red-blue version. By stripping down games from Nintendo bigger console so it will be playable on the handheld device, Gunpei Yokoi made it possible for gaming to be more portable. He died soon after his departure from Nintendo, unfortunately on a tragic car accident, but his adage of lateral thinking with better technology can still be seen even to this day, with Breath of the Wild still being a marvel that somehow ran on the Switch console, making Nintendo console usually age the best with the amount of games playable or available during its lifetime. Game Boy itself, despite lacking its own source of light unless you're using attachable light, was one of the most sturdy consoles, even surviving a bombing. There are so much great games available on this bad boy: Zelda, Link of Awakening, Mario, including even Super Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby, Mega Man, Pokemon, Metroid, and even Tetris that at that time still have copyright issue. All this game, and we're not even talking yet about its upgrade on 1998 Game Boy Color and the subsequent upgrade on 2001 Game Boy Advance. Personally, I never experienced both of these, but Mega Man Battle Network that I eventually played started here. I also never experienced its variation, which is Game Boy Advance SP that is released on 2003 and Game Boy Micro that is released on 2005. This was before backlighting screen was invented, as I mentioned, so Game Boy accessories like Bomb Light is the only legit source of light that also kills the battery life that at that time will kill the game you're playing without any alert. This is also before everyone has cameras on their pocket. So the camera attachment on Game Boy could be said to be ahead of its time, which you can then print using the Game Boy printer. You can also play a kind of multiplayer games using the link cable. It's mostly used to trade Pokemon, I think. The book then gives some highlight to the games that is significant to the consoles, like the ones I've mentioned, and also the experience of the people who makes the book with those games. It's too bad that no one on the team who made the book played JRPGs, since there are a lot of gems on the Game Boy Advance era. There's Golden Sun, Final Fantasy Tactics, Super Robot Wars, Fire Emblem, Tactic Ogre, Mario and Luigi RPG, and even a couple of Breath of Fire, including the second Breath of Fire, which is arguably the best one in the unfortunately dead series. Then we move on eventually to 2004, the release date for Nintendo DS, a console that I eventually buy second-hand from a good friend. The gimmick of the console is that it had two screens, and the screen at the bottom is a touchscreen. It also has a microphone. Both of these functions are used in games like Ace Attorney. The book also gave a highlight to JRPG, which I guess is better late than never. And it chooses some of the best JRPG in NDS like Radiant Historia, a time-traveling JRPG and one of the most underrated Atlus games. Then the book also highlights The World Ends With You, which I'll be honest I never played, but I heard good things about it. Animal Crossing is also big on the NDS, but we move on to 2011 with NDS upgrade 3DS, which might possibly be the worst of Nintendo gaming console with lackluster release and also a failure at integrating 3D, which at the time is all the hype in media, where a lot of movies even fall victim to it. From my understanding of the console, a lot of its owners just turn off the 3D effect of the console, which only makes the image harder to see and the battery to drain faster. So it's easier on the eyes of the player and the console if we turn off the 3D. Thankfully, the console makes a comeback and turned into one of the most stacked gaming console ever with tons of original games and tons of ports. The person who brought this section even started his JRPG journey in 3DS playing the best Final Fantasy, which is 9 here, then started Chrono Trigger and Shin Megami Tensei, and of course, Bravely Default and Dragon Quest VIII. The book also hinted at the importance of gaming preservation here, with how difficult physical games are to find, and I also want to add that the eShop for 3DS was recently closed last year in March 2023, making getting the game for the console even harder and even more expensive. I think that's why the charity controversy case from YouTuber Jirah the Completionist, who is known for preservation of games, is even more scummy without even mentioning yet that the money he took for the charity are for people in need. Nevertheless, the book continues to 2017 with the release of Nintendo Switch, the best console of the current era that is still running strong even after it's been 5 to 6 years since its launch. A console that not only changed the landscape of gaming because of its hybrid concept, but also the console that are able to give a lot of people on YouTube the capability to make a living out of solely covering this console. It's that strong of a console. For the games, while the Pokemon games at this point has been mostly lackluster and relies solely on its hardcore fanbase instead of games like Zelda and Mario Odyssey came out so strong that it redefined the genre for each game, especially Zelda Breath of the Wild, spawning games like Genshin Impact and even Elden Ring as a result of its success. And not to mention how compatible with the indie game landscape the console are, enough for the company to create a dedicated indie game showcase every few months or so. The book also tackles some rare handheld devices from Nintendo like the Micro Versus system, a failed Nintendo product that focuses on it being for multiplayer. Then there's the Pokemon Mini, which is Nintendo's attempt at making their own Tamagotchi. I'm actually quite surprised that the book didn't have Tamagotchi on their own since it's such a huge handheld product. After finishing out the Nintendo product, the book went back to 2004 for the release of PSP, Sony's attempt at handheld device. I don't really remember any PSP titles that are not ported yet because I don't have much experience with PSP. My experience with PSP is mostly just borrowing a friend's unused PSP at the time to play Metal Gear Peace Walker with another friends. It was fun using the tank box or the hospital box or the Assassin's Creed box and shooting at Rathalos from Monster Hunter. The console got an upgrade in the form of PS Vita on 2011, which I don't have an experience with at all before this. But from what I know, before Switch, indie games got their best time to shine on PS Vita with titles like Binding of Isaac and Paper Please. The book then ended with a few more smaller handheld gadgets like Sega Game Gear from 1990 and other handheld devices, even newer ones like Steam Deck, even if briefly. The book as an archive is not the most in-depth or complete there is, not even in the consoles that it had. Honestly, if you're looking for an archive for console gaming, Scott Wars channel I think had a better deep dive for each console that are not just the handheld one, for each of its exterior, and best of all, you can watch them for free on YouTube, unlike this book that costs $40 US. For example, what the book like, it didn't cover too much games, mostly only those that goes mainstream in the industry. Also, I kinda want the book to also cover the many absurd bootleg of handheld console in history, because those can get really wild. But what it have is the art and the personal history of the people behind the book that give the story and the book more personality. If you want to mostly reminisce and unlock a few key memories from your past, I think the book did a great job at that. I give this a 3.75. What do you think? Are you gonna read it? Did I miss anything? Leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it.